Hi, my name is Evalyn.
My name is Justin.
And my name is Chris. And today
Today we will be
Today,
talking
we'll be
about
talking about
Fred
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 Korematsu.
Korematsu.
He was born January 30th, 1919 in Oakland, California and had 3 siblings.
According to the National Park Service, his parents were Japanese immigrants.
His mom immigrated from Japan through Angel Island, which was an immigration station in San Francisco where immigrants were detained and interrogated.
He was extremely patriotic, and according to the Korematsu he even tried to enlist in the U.S. National Guard and U.S. Coast Guard.
Although he was turned away by military officers who discriminated against him due to his Japanese ancestry.
After the events of Pearl Harbor, speculation arose of Japanese immigrants and their loyalty was tested with questionnaires.
According to History.com, Lieutenant General John L. DeWitt was the leader of the Western Defense Command and believed that the civilian population needed to be taken control of in order to prevent a repeat of Pearl Harbor.
And then, on February 19th, 1942, President Franklin D. Roosevelt signed Executive Order 9066, giving full authority to the War Department to carry out DeWitt's plan. The order itself did not have language based on race, but granted military authority to declare areas from which any or all persons may be excluded, according to the National Park Service.
Due to all of the Japanese immigrants on the west coast from Angel Island immigration, they were forced to go to assembly centers in remote locations near their homes.
They were then transferred to relocation centers where they would have to take permanent wartime residence, according to History.com.
Fred went against these laws and did not want to go to these camps because he wasn't a disloyal citizen.
This caused him to get arrested, especially since he had been of Japanese descent, who did not follow Executive Order 9066. This was on May 30th, 1942.
While in jail, the director of the San Francisco office of the American Civil Rights Liberties Union asked Korematsu if he was willing to become the test case to challenge the constitutionality of the government's imprisonment of Japanese Americans.
In addition, a similar case happened with Miss Endo, who was a Japanese American who protested these concentration camps in other ways. Previously, the court stated that an American citizen who was a loyal citizen with individual evidence of disloyalty could not be detained. So that meant at least all of the American citizens who were in these camps had a legal right to be released.
She went to the detention center and then challenged her imprisonment under the writ of habeas corpus, which is a constitutional provision that allows anyone to challenge any detention by the government as lacking in procedural or substantive justice, stated in the video by the Federalist Society.
In 1980, President Jimmy Carter appointed a special commission to instigate a federal review of the facts and circumstances around the incarceration of Japanese Americans during World War II, and 3 years later, the CWIRC concluded that the decisions to remove those people of Japanese ancestry to U.S. prison camps occurred because of race, prejudice, war hysteria, and a failure of political leadership.
After his conviction was overturned, Korematsu became an active member of the National Coalition for Redress and Reparations.
During the Supreme Court case, he claimed he was treated unfairly. According to the video by the Federalist Society, he claimed equal protection violations, a violation of search and seizure, and his claim was that the violation of these constitutional rights should mean that his criminal conviction should be overturned.
After World War II, Fred moved to Detroit where his younger brother resided, since mixed race marriage was illegal in states including California and South Carolina.
Because of his leadership in standing up to the government, he received the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 1998.
The state of California also passed a Fred Korematsu Day bill, making January 30 the first day named after an Asian American.
And lastly, he had resisted the internment of Japanese Americans during World War II. Some events that had caused discrimination towards the Japanese during this time were the Executive Order 9066 that removed Japanese people and placed them in assembly centers and incarceration camps. The court had believed that Japanese were signaling enemy ships for compromised locations.
Before the executive order was enacted, Japanese were considered to be alien enemies to the rest of American society. Reports of disloyalty circulated through the media. However, there were no examples of sabotage by any Japanese Americans throughout the war. Despite this, Lieutenant General John L. DeWitt at the Presidential Army Base made plans and justifications for the removal of Japanese Americans from the West Coast.
On March 24, 1942, all individuals of Japanese ancestry would report to the assembly centers where they would be held until the permanent camps were finished. The court had believed that these Japanese were signaling enemy ships for compromised locations and couldn't display signs of disloyalty, and so placed them in the assembly centers.
Some ways Korematsu had shown resistance against the government during this could be displayed in a few ways. He fought his own conviction in internment, assisted in passing the Civil Liberties Act of 1988, and for the passage of the redress and reparations legislation into law.
By doing this, he became an active member of the National Coalition for Redress and Reparations, which aimed towards the goal of wartime removal and incarceration of the West Coast Japanese Americans.
These are some of the vocabulary related to the subject, and these are links.
And
thank
thank you for listening.